tira mā, e koia mā, e koro mā, e hui mai nei ki te kaupapa o tēnei rā koutou. Ngā mihi nui ki te haukanga, ngā iwi o Tauranga Moana, tēnā koutou. Ngā mihi kingi tū heitia, he piko he taniwha, he piko o taniwha, waikato taniwha rau. Ngā mihi whanaunga, henare rau ko Levi, tēnā kura, ko Laura Rowley tuku inga. This is our papakainga. It's a 8-unit papakainga. So there's 2 2-bedrooms, 4 3-bedrooms, and 2 4-bedrooms. This is where our papakainga is located, on our whenua and Waiwahiki. You'll see in the top corner there, our papakainga is just at the foot of Otatara Pā. Toi and his descendants came through Otatara. Nai Kaitahu and Whatu Māmoe also came through Otatara. And so we whakapapa back to quite a few iwi. You also see our awa, Tutaikuri River, and still clean. I wouldn't drink the water, but you definitely swim in it. And we're just located next to Taradale, which is quite an affluent suburb in Napier. And you'll see that the Eastern Institute of Technology is just over the bridge. And we've also got a cultural centre, the Waiwahiki Community Arts Centre, and a golf course, which we still own a third of. So there's a lot of good amenities. So on the 3rd of July last year, Dame Tariana Turia officially opened our papakainga, and it's, we call it Te Ngāti Hinuwera Whānau, papakainga whānau ora. We really support the concept of whānau ora, and we owe a lot to, or our whānau owes a lot to Dame Tariana Turia. And we think she's done a lot of great things. And it signalled a new beginning. And so our papakainga has been tenanted for over a year now. And by and large, it's been good, but we've had some challenges, and I'll get to that at the end. But I better give you some details about our whānau first. So my tipuna, where our whānau, the Tāria whānau, pretty much the Tāriha name came from Tāria Te Moana nui, my tipuna. And he was a great chief in Ngāti Kahungunu, and he was the first Māori to speak in Parliament. And he said in his inaugural speech, which we find relevant today, and I'll just read it to you. This is the only word that has occurred to me to say, that when it is good and when it is evil that lies before you, continue to do that which is good. That which is evil is not so powerful as not to be overcome by good, and that which is good is the only thing that you need to spend your powers upon. So, I mean that can apply to any age. And I know someone mentioned the Hillary Trump campaign, but there's definitely 2 contrasting styles there. One is everything is bad, and one is let's work together. And I suppose my tipuna would have been in the Hillary camp. So Tariha Te Moana nui had he only had he had 2 sons, Kuropo and Te Roira. Kuropo was my great-great-grandfather, and you can see he was a good golfer. He was a New Zealand amateur champ at one stage. He didn't pass those genes on to me, unfortunately. And his son, Kapi, was also New Zealand amateur champ, and my koro only had one son. Only had Kapi, was his only child, and Kapi came about. Kurupo was having trouble having children at the time, and the story goes he made a deal with the sea people, who were also a whānau, Pānia, Mori. He made a deal with them, and he had a liaison with a copper-haired woman named Hinuera, and Kapi was born as a result of that liaison to my, obviously to Kurupo's wife. But the deal was that Kapi was meant to go back to the sea people, and obviously my koro reneged on the deal, and as a result, Kurupo didn't have any other children. So Kapi had 6 children himself, including my koro horena kawhi, George Tariha, and George had 12 children, including this man, my uncle Tipu, and my mother. And 12 children is a lot of children. Yeah, so anyway, so we owe a lot to our tupuna and that, but my uncle Tipu, he basically, he kept our papakainga dream alive after my koro George died, and he kept the conversation going. And when he died a couple of years ago, it was a very sad occasion. It really brought our whānau together, which wasn't a cohesive unit, my mum's brothers and sisters. And it's one of the few times that we've had all the surviving brothers and sisters in the same room at the same time, willing to listen, willing to talk. And we talked about Tipu, and basically, how can we make things better for this future generation? And our whānau, like a lot of Māori whānau, we're quite emotional. We're quite emotional. And we need that emotion to, I guess, motivate us, to get us out of our comfort zones. And that was the perfect time to do it. And they had, my uncle Tipu and one of the other uncles had made me the chair of the trust only a couple of years earlier. And basically, the tono was passed on to me. Let's fulfil this dream. Let's put this dream into action. Let's build some houses for our whānau. So we stopped dying young. Yeah. So anyway, as Paula Bennett said, I was in the right place at the right time, and for the right price, which was free. So this was the initial concept plan that we took to the social housing unit. That was with MB at the time. And yeah, so you'll see it's been master planned or whatever. And yeah, and the whānau were generally happy with it. I'd just like to contrast how we were able to achieve what we did in a relatively short space of time from when we actually all agreed to let's do something to our marae rebuild. This is our master plan for our marae rebuild. Our marae burnt down in 2002, and we haven't built anything since. And fortunately, construction has started, so we hope to have it constructed in the time for Matatini. But anyway, this is what it's going to look like. But just, because I've got to be mindful when you're a slave to your whānau that you've got the full mandate. And unfortunately, we didn't have that same leadership in in the wider hapu. This was turning into a bit of a white elephant. We're having wars over how many toilets. You know, it was absurd. And I said, whānau, we've got to agree that we just want a marae, okay? Never mind how many toilets or what the kitchen should look like. Let's just get these plans underway. And magically, just that collaboration, whatever unity, it was just all the barriers seem to just drop away. And once Māori work together, they can achieve anything. Now, I've got a side note. I've been listening to some podcasts about the Mongolian Empire, and I believe we whakapapa back to Mongolia, so bear with me. Anyway, the Khans of Mongolia pretty much nearly took over the whole world. We'd probably be speaking some form of Mongolian for now if they stayed united. And I think if we can unite as Māori, as iwi, we could take over the world too. Anyway, this is our whenua. So, so my koro had 12 children, and it was really a tale of two halves for the whānau. I guess the older children, those that didn't pass away, they went to the army, but they were quite high-achieving whānau. And I speak to some of the older uncles and that, and they were effectively self-sufficient back in their time. In the 50s, they were self-sufficient. They lived off the land. He went to school, he got a job at 14, and then went to the army and travelled the world. And he's in Australia, but we're building a house just for him, and he's coming back soon. And my mum, I should say, she was in the middle, and she was brought up in Ruatahuna and Wanganui. So she kind of missed, but those that stayed there, like my koro died pretty young. My nan, I don't think my nan coped, and she died young also. And those remaining siblings, they were brought up pretty much by the eldest sibling. It was a bit like watching that movie Boy, when the nan goes away and the younger kids are brought up by just the barely older kid. And I think, for us that may have sowed some roots of dysfunction. Yeah, so this is some of the whānau working on the land. It gets better. So one of the problems, we had this marakai, and we thought it was going to be a great thing where our whānau could be, start looking at becoming self-sufficient and saving money on groceries and all that. And but after a while, what we discovered, there was only a couple of our whānau that were actually working on the garden. And so some of our younger whānau, they're lazy, they'd rather play the PlayStation. But it was some of our kuia particularly, they wanted to get in there, but they were whakamā. They didn't know how to garden. And so we set up we went in partnership with the EIT there and set up a gardening course, and this is what they've got going now, and it's It's a lot more successful than what we had before. We thought we were doing the right thing with the swale design and that, but this fella from the IT's come along and said, nah, this is how you do it. And yeah, they're producing a lot already. And we've got a little nursery. Yeah, so that's good. And I mean, that's whatu naru naru tōitu te whenua. Oh, I might bugger that one up, sorry. Whatu naru naru te tangata tōitu te whenua, ko te mana whenua, he mana tangata, ko te mana tangata, he mana whenua. So if you look after the land will look after you. So anyway, 5 minutes, okay. So when we talk about a new beginning, this is what we're talking about. This was our old whare. And I mentioned some of that dysfunction before. And this is the Blue House. And our whanaunga from Ngāti Kahungunu will know the Blue House because it's famous. And it's famous for all the wrong reasons. Gangs, drugs, and violence. So when we talk about a new beginning for our whānau, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to get, we saw from my tipuna Tariha to Moana where we blue blood, and then we went to blue scarves. And so we take that quite seriously, but it's taken a couple of generations to create. It's probably going to take another couple of generations to actually overcome. So, I mean, there's a couple of lessons in the Blue House. I guess there was a mental, a wairoa henenaro thing, but there's also the practical stuff, like maintenance, maintenance of the house. And it was mortgage free, and we had, there was a long time there we didn't collect any rent, and then we were collecting $50 a week from the uncle when I had a cousin staying in the back and he was paying nothing, and it just barely covered the rates. And just so we look at these new houses, and you need the rent to come in because you need to maintain it, and you don't want to have to see it uplifted and buddies sent to the wreckers or whatever. You know, you want these houses to have a long lifespan. So they're good houses. Anyway, this is inside. So we provide, there's dishwasher, fridge, freezer, and a washing machine at the back there. Some of them have got the solar panels, which are quite good. So that's a recent photo. So you'll see solar panels there, and okay, and we've got a basketball court. There's a mischief nephew of mine. I'll talk about him later. And we've got a playground, and we've got car parking. It's not always used, but we've got it because we don't want them parking on the grass. Anyway, so when we went into this, we went into it with our eyes open. We knew that Papakāinga had struggled in the past because it was difficult whānau collecting rent off whānau. And we've got a mortgage, and it's actually my house on the line. And I need that money coming, or my wife's going to kill me. Yeah, so we're fortunate. We had a social housing, registered social housing unit provider already in our rohe, the Waiuhiki Community Charitable Trust. They've been providing social housing since 1989, just 2 standard loan houses and kind of 2 apartments. And the Waiuhiki Community Charitable Trust is a aroha mai whānau. I'll carry on. Anyway, the Waiuhiki Community Charitable Trust was a partnership between the Pākehā whānau and Waiuhiki and the Māori whānau in Waiuhiki. And at the moment there's 3 Ngāti Pāro on the board and 2 Pākehā whānau. Sorry, 2 Ngāti Pāro, my father, who thinks he's a Māori, and 2 Pākehā. So I read somewhere that papakainga are essentially intentional communities, so one of the lessons we've learnt about a papakainga, we need to teach people to be able to live next door to each other, live in a kainga together. And we've set the objective of a healthy, wealthy, wise 21st century kainga, and that's the whole of Waiheke, and that's our cultural arts village, our golf course, the iate across the river, our awa, our tātara pā, and our new marae. And these were some of the principles we had: tēnā rangatira-tanga, take responsibility for your own actions, whānau, look after your family, mahi kotai, work together. But basically, all in all, we just want a happy, healthy vibe in the papakainga, just like everyone here. Doesn't always work out that way, though. So there's been some obviously good. Yep, there's been a lot of good. There's been a lot of good with our papakainga. Just the health alone, just the health of our tamariki, the health of our kaumātua. It's been great, but I'm preaching the converted there. And the whakawhanaungatanga has been great. We had 10 months of bliss. I wish I could have given this speech 10 months ago. I wouldn't need the slide, okay? And our whānau's more resilient as a whole. When there's tangi, when there's issues, we come together. We can awhi other whānau. We can. Whenever I hear a tangi, I expect a call about a koha, and that's been happening a lot. But it feels good to be able to koha other whānau in their time of need, and the bad, well, it's just a sign of Māoridom. We have a lot of poverty in our whānau. There's a lot of poverty. But we're trying to deal with it, and we're trying to make the next generation better. We have some high-risk tenants. When we set this up, it was targeted at our descendants of Ngāti Hinawera. Now we've got a waiting list. We've got a waiting list for our papakainga. But we had some whānau, particularly younger ones, that were living in sheds with kids and caravans, and we knew they were high risk, but we needed to give them a chance because we couldn't accept them living like that. And we've had, the chickens have come home to roost with a couple of the tenants, and it's mainly been around drugs and a recent domestic violence incident. And I need to say this because I know I've been kōrero with some of the other people around here, and it's I guess I'm the only one willing to hang out my dirty washing. But I need to say this because we're having some, even though we've got a property manager that handles most of this thing, I've had to come in, and when I have to come in, pretty much the whole whānau has to come in. And I've had to come in recently. And the debate is, how do we change the behaviours? Do we change the behaviours, or do you just change the address? And it's about 50-50 split at the moment. But anyway, so with the drugs, we're trying to get the health services in, and we've got the police in, and all of that, and it's basically saying no komotu to dysfunctional behaviours. And it's quite funny, when we went and visited Mangatawa, I saw you guys had a camera there. We've got a camera too. And it hasn't done what I expected it to do, but anyway, so we've got those issues. But I just want to leave with this. And this is my tipuna, and I've reworded it for him. Focus the energy on the good and starve the bad. Ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.
You are so from Te Ātiho Nui a Pāpārangi. That presentation, I think I may have heard many of my uncles with that same style. Look, I just want to say, Laurie wanted to sing a song, but he didn't trust his singing voice. We'll go and register ourselves on the skit list tonight. I don't know about your Mongolia theory. That must be on your kahungunu side. No, sorry. Look, if I can say, I think there isn't anybody in this room here that didn't hear you in terms of you're talking about how hard our families can be. We all know how hard they can be. And all I can say is on behalf of the conference, you hang in there. Now I feel like his auntie. Auntie Tari would not have trusted your trust to go into this venture and to do these things with your families if she didn't think you had the fortitude and the tenacity to do that. So kia ka'a, kia maia, kia manawa nui. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, no, probably on your auntie. Right, yeah.
E hara I te mea, no nai nei te aroa, no nā tupuna, tuku I oi, tuku I oi.
Ka pai, you had that on lockdown. Tēnā koe, Laurie, and of course he did quite a bit of business with the Hemp Brothers just as they left the stage here, so tēnā pai te hui Māori. I nāia nei, we're going to head off to Pōneke, and I'm going to invite Richard Wickens from Te Tumu Paeroa to talk to us now about the Te Aro Pāwhenua Trust Project. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Wickens. Kia ora, Richard.
Tihei Māori ora, ena mana, ena reo, e rau rangatira mā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It's a privilege to be here today. Privilege not just to talk about my project, but a privilege also to listen to other people's stories. And if people saw me from behind in those seats over there, and saw what they thought was an elderly Pākehā nodding off, it was in fact me nodding in agreement with many of the things that have been said today and yesterday. This story is really one of a long history. I've been associated with this particular trust on and off for about, dare I say, 33 years. And we've had good times, hard times, but we've come through and we've been able to deliver, I think, something really significant for these people. But let's, I want to play a slideshow, rather a video clip, and I'll go straight into the clip.
Te Aro is basically an example of what can be achieved on multiple owned Māori land in an urban context. So I think when you look back at this piece of land and the history of the Te Aro Pā Trust, it is a history of loss.
And remembering Te Aro Pā and the really wide area of land that we owned, and thinking about where we ended up in Pole Hill Gully. My brother was a trustee on that land block for quite a while, and thinking, I can't believe that's what happened to us. I think it's, in this modern world, people just kind of lose sight of history often.
Well, Te Aro Pā obviously was where they settled, Ngāti Runui and Ngāti Haumea, basically around Pigeon Park, that went up Kent Terrace, Canberra's Terrace, went right up there, the gardens. They were then shifted and otherwise forcibly pushed up into Pole Hill Gully. You imagine living up there in Pole Hill Gully in that old tip gully there. On a southerly. Imagine our tupuna sitting up there around fires trying to keep warm. I've always had that sort of sitting within my heart that one day, if the opportunity did arise, we should develop something in their honour, in their memory. This Te Aro Pā initiative was around the land swap, where we swapped that piece of Pauhel gullies with the Crown for the land underneath the woolshed.
Through working with Te Tumu Paeroa, we were fortunate to have quite a bit of support in seeing what was possible with our whenua. And papakainga was a real meaningful way for us to build something.
The owners recognised that probably the highest and best use of this land would be to develop it and provide affordable housing for owners and more broadly for Taranaki whānui.
The challenge was getting the numbers right, actually. So, you know, making sure that you've got the funding required to do the build.
So recognising the contribution that the Māori Housing Network could make in terms of feasibility and some of the capital costs associated with the project, right through to identifying the builder, project manager, the architect, Roger Walker.
Well, I was talking about the marae as a village. So what we tried to reflect those Maori values, that this is a village. And that people have their private spaces, but they have common areas like the common veggie garden. And the units are spaced apart. There's places for the kids to play. So there were those principles which come out of the honest construction of marae, and the way the buildings are put together and the way they work as a social entity.
So we've managed to design something that's meeting the market demand. So a mix of the single bedroom units focused on the elderly kaumātua paake and the larger units sort of having a focus on being able to house families.
Everybody was amazed about how quickly the buildings went up. All these panels were precast and Levin, they were brought here by truck. Every day there was 3 or 4 new houses closed in.
It's been 5 months of construction and 2 years of planning. I've been the development manager, so undertook the initial feasibility study, worked through the funding and development structuring, contract procurement, and then delivery.
We've been very fortunate. We've had some great weather, so Wellington's turned it on for us, yeah, so we haven't really lost any time due to weather.
We've been able to get a nice place back, you know, and a nice place for us to occupy in a meaningful way again. So it's a real proud time for us, I think.
It was just when timeline to planning dates met, budgets met, and, you know, open day.
The opening basically sort of demonstrated to everyone in attendance that you can do this.
To all our tūpuna at Te Aroha, the originals, this is for you. I can feel the weight of our ancestors and those that were attached to Te Aroha.
Whoever's living in here, just that sense of connection and the visibility of the site, I feel really proud.
This is an amazing and a special day for, you know, for Ruanui, Taranaki and Taranaki whānui.
It's for the betterment of our people on our own land, in their own space. You can't get it any better.
There'll be young families here, there'll be, you know, kaumātua kuia, hopefully, that we can get into these single bedroom units. And over time, I hope that we get a sense that if you move in here, there's a commitment to looking out for your neighbours, you know.
It was actually my youngest son who motivated me to apply. So he's the most excited in our entire family, but they're both happy to be putting some closure in our moving.
One of the things that I'm very satisfied about is we're actually changing the perception of what affordable housing is. You know, that we can instill a sense of pride in the families that live here, that they're going to care for this place, that they're going to treat it with the respect it deserves, and that, you know, the trust is going to play a part in the lives of these families.
So I have a cousin that's moved in here, and he said to his sister, you know, it's really nice to think that I can have something that's new and fresh and that it's okay for me to live like that.
With good leadership, with passion and enthusiasm, you can actually create a legacy. And this is truly a legacy for the descendants of Te Aroha.
If there's more affordable housing projects, especially for our people, then that would be really exciting to think that this was the anchor piece for that going forward.
A real remembrance of our heritage and looking forward to those new opportunities that the future will bring. An opportunity to connect with our whenua in ways that we haven't been able to do in the past.
We've come out of the darkness, out of all hero into here, we're in the light.
Yes.
That's the way I see it in a symbolic, metaphorical sense.
I'll just flick some of these up. I'm conscious that the bell goes off quite regularly. So you can read that. One of the important things I think there is the 2,047 square metres that was zoned suburban central land. One of the previous speakers referred to the piece of land they had as being their only piece, and that was where they were going to put their house on for their whānau. This is very much the same for this trust. All they've got is 2,047 square metres, and not all of that's flat. Some of it's up on a steep bank at the back. And I think when you look at what's been achieved on this site through good design, you can see actually what you can produce. In this case, it's 10 three-bedroom homes and 4 single-bed homes, and a really good design. I'm probably going to deviate a little bit from my presentation because I think there are a number of things that maybe you want to know about that are more important perhaps than some of these, which you can just read. Where we got to was about, I suppose, about 2.5 years ago. I was talking to one of the advisory trustees at the time, and we were trying to decide what we were going to do with the site. So I engaged a property consultant to go out and come back with some options. And we got a representative from the property group who came back and said to us, look, we think the best proposal for this site is Papakāinga housing. And why do we say that? Well, there's 1,100 owners in this block, and there's only 2,047 square metres. And the best way to share the benefits of that small piece of land really is to rent it, to create rental homes that people can cycle through, and we can get, we're looking at around 5 years max, and hoping that people improve their circumstances enough to move on and to better things. So that was where we started, and then we got into, sorry to keep looking over my shoulder, force of habit, get into a feasibility study. And I know this is pretty important. I know that Victoria Kingi touched on it in one of her presentations. We began really with an idea on paper of where we might go. We had a talk to the advisory trustees. There was only 3 of them active at that time, and we decided that we needed to get some money together for a proper feasibility study. And we didn't really have, as an organisation, experience in building this sort of apartment block, but we were prepared to engage people to assist us to do that, and that's what we had done by engaging, in the end, the property group to help manage the process. Then we went and made a pitch to what is now the Maori Housing Network. At the time it was SHU, and introduced our ideas to them, and asked whether or not it'd be worthwhile our submitting an application. They said, it sounds all right, go on, submit an application and we'll give you a hearing. So we did. We prepared an application. It was a pretty thorough sort of application. My involvement in it really has been all over a lot of it to make sure that the content was correct and that it was the right pitch for the owners. And we did get the money. We were successful in getting the money, and we went out and we engaged the property group managing it all, but they engaged, got a builder to participate in producing ideas around construction cost. We have an architect producing some designs, and we also had engineers talking about some of the problems of the site. And this site, as I mentioned, and you'll have seen from the video, had a steep bank at the rear, and that presented some problems. We knew the council might well want us to undertake some fairly expensive construction of retaining walls, which would have actually made it very difficult for us to find the money for this. But we got, I think, a fairly good feasibility study together. It certainly was thorough, and it really provided the springboard to the next part of the project. And we got agreement with the advisory trustees that we would go a bit further and we would sound out the various funders, including the Maori Housing Network, to see whether or not we could obtain the funds that would be necessary to actually turn pie in the sky to apartment blocks on the ground. And we got favourable consideration, and so we decided then that we would go to the owners and tell them what we had to show them and about how the project would work and the prospects of success. And we got agreement from the owners at that meeting. We also got introduced to that meeting, through that meeting, some new advisory trustees. And we had been approached prior to the meeting of owners by people expressing interest in becoming advisory trustees because word of the project had got around and they were very keen on being part of it. And I have to say, we ended up with a very, very good, capable bunch of advisory trustees, and some of them, of course, are long-standing advisory trustees who I've known for many years. And I'd have to say I can count them as friends, not just people who are owners in a block or advisory trustees. And they've understood this process, all the components of the project, including the financial side. They understood all of that. They participated in the development of tenanting policies. So they've been very important to the whole process. The Maori Land Court was also involved in this process because when we elected the new advisory trustees, we asked for a review of the trust, and we got them and we told them that what we were doing and that we were going to be borrowing around about $2.4 million from the bank, and this would be a debt that the trust would have to repay. So it was pretty important that they were aware of what we were going to do, and that also owners had been advised in a report prior to the hearing. So that we got through that process with the court. We got all our new advisory trustees appointed, and we were able then to go ahead to the next part of the process. As I've said, dealing with the contour of the land had make or break funding implications. Access, in the case of a city, to and from the site during construction off a very busy road. It's on the way to the airport. If you go around Oriental Parade, for those that know Wellington. So those things were always going to be a problem. We had a tight budget, and when we completed the feasibility study, we had a pretty good idea of what money we were going to have to find and what money we had to work with, and also that it was going to be a bit of a no-frills job because we simply didn't have enough surplus money. So installation of council infrastructure services had to coincide with the completion of the build. That was all in the timeline. So since the bell's gone off, I'll just flick through this. We had our own internal processes that we had to go through, that I reported to and the property manager reported to, and we reported regularly to the advisory trustees. But I'll go back a step, and when we decided to go ahead with the project, we called for expressions of interest from both the builders and architects, and they came as a combination. And in the end, we went with the architect for a bid that was not successful from the construction side, and a builder that we liked from the other side. So it was a combination, and I think it worked very well. And the advisory trustees were there when we got everybody to make their presentation. That included the banks, and we spent a lot of time. I'm just going to click to relationships on this because I've had the bell. But cultivating relationships right through this has been just essential. You don't do these projects on your own. You do them with other people. You bring all sorts of experience to bear on it. And I'd have to acknowledge the interest of TPK, the Maori Housing Network, and the support we got from them. Also, the support that we got from the Dwell Housing Trust, who manage the tenanting of these units, as well as also some of the property matters. And we continue to have a close working relationship with them. It's interesting when you're dealing with the banks. We thought we were having a good look at the banks. In actual fact, they were also having a good look at us at the same time. It's a bit like a marriage, I suppose. You go through that courtship and each party is looking to see what the other's got to offer and whether it'll all work. And so that for us was very important to gain that trust, I suppose, from the bank, and the recognition that we had the capability with the advisory trustees and the owners to deliver this project. The big lessons, and I should talk a little bit about how quickly it went up. The advisory trustees in that video clip that you saw talked about how important it was to them and the significance of the connection with the land. And those were all essentials in this, as well as some design features. But the speed that this went up was important to us, because there gets a point where you run out of grant money and you start using the bank's money and the interest starts to roll. And it was 5 months it took to construct, and fortunately the amount of interest that we had to capitalise and use and borrow actually to repay were not as significant as we had expected in the first place. One of the builders touched on there hadn't been really any serious delays. I think we had a delay of about 6 days as a result of high winds, and when you're installing those big concrete panels, tilt slab construction, in high winds, they're quite dangerous. So they had some downtime for that, but pretty much it went on time. And I saw one of the other presentations where right before the opening they were finishing off a road. We were much the same. The council was in there the night before, putting down the footpath alongside the road, and it was all touch and go really, but on the day, as you could see from the video clip, it came together really well. And I think everybody's now seen pie in the sky being turned into a very, I think, interesting and project that will contribute to reducing in a small way, even with 14 units, the demand for housing in the Wellington city. Unfortunately, I sort of listened to all the presentations that have gone before me, and I think, gosh, we're getting some real traction here, but then you think about the statistics and you realise just how much further one has to go really to make sure this is going to be successful and deal with the housing issue. Big lessons. Success is not a destination, and why I say that is because the point where your building project manager walks away, actually you're there, still left, you've got the debt to pay, and you've got to worry about making sure that rent gets paid. And I pick up what the previous speakers said about hard for whānau to take rent or whānau when they're having difficulties, and I think one of the important things for us is to have the Dwell Housing Trust in there and to provide some separation between the advisory trustees and the whānau who are going to occupy the units. It makes decision making a lot easier. Honour your grant givers. We respect, and I'm talking really the Maori Housing Network, we respect the privilege that we've had on behalf of this trust to get some money that really, for the first time, gave them the equity to go out and borrow money, instead of being a joint venture where they might have owned the underlying land. In this instance, they will end up owning the buildings and the land, and have gained not only an opportunity to house some of their people, but also to grow their asset. As small as it is, it's now a significantly valuable asset. Honour your bankers, got to keep them on side. Honour your housing providers, and that's Dwell Housing Trust, who are an accredited housing provider. Honour your landowners, your risks are their risks. I guess for me this project over the last couple of years has occupied probably 75% of my waking hours, and there's probably been quite a bit of time between 1 and 2 in the morning where I've done some extra worrying. But that's just the nature of the game. Communication is a strategy, not just an art. The video clip that you saw is perhaps one of the final major pieces in our communication strategy, but we started on our strategy quite early in the piece to make sure that people were aware of what we were doing, and we took them on the journey through the construction. It's important, I think, because we wanted people to realise that this is their project. It's not Te Tumu Pairoa's, it's theirs. Property consultants, friends, well, you always need friends. And when it was, sometimes we had issues, the property consultant had friends in the right places, sometimes in council, where we're able to get around some of the obstacles that we've been presented with. And be all over the detail. I'm a bit of a details man, a nuts and bolts man, and I feel responsible for what happens there. It's important to me that I don't let down the owners in the land or the advisory trustees who rely on me. And the other thing, as I said, it took about 75% of my time for a couple of years. The whole business is very labour intensive. But look, don't let any of this put you off. I've heard people in the presentations going before me in the last couple of days articulating dreams. That's where it starts. You need the dream, then you need to do your feasibility study, thorough homework, make sure you can actually make your dream happen. Surround yourselves with the people who can actually help you make that dream happen. Housing is for the needy is not just a mission. At the end of the day, it is a commercial enterprise. You have to pay the bank back or you're going to lose your asset. And in this instance, there is a mortgage over the land and the buildings. So for us, it's essential that we make sure and we treat it as a commercial enterprise. For those that like numbers, it cost $3.6 million to build, and we got $1.2 million from the Maori Housing Network as the contribution to the equity. may there be more like this, because if you can get the equity together, get a good project together, you can do something for your people and grow an asset that's going to be good for future generations. The other thing I'd just say about, and it's my final point, is that you will notice we built in concrete, and this is a very exposed site to the south, to the Cook Strait, and we wanted something that was durable. We knew we were going to have a lot of tenants through it, and we also wanted something that would stand a bit of rough wear. So these were practical things, but also concrete brought some insulation qualities to the building. Perhaps hemp would do the same. So that was important for us. The other thing is, of course, when you're doing a speed of construction, if you're doing it in tilt slab construction, all the pouring of the concrete slabs actually was done in Levin, half an hour's drive from Wellington, so it could be done undercover. And then over the space of about 3 or 4 days, all these slabs were trucked down and they were erected by crane. So that was very important to us. We got a structure in the end that's very durable, sits in the landscape with the rest of the houses in the area. And I have to say, we had a barbecue on Saturday with the tenants and the advisory trustees to try and start to build that sense of community and connection with the land that was originally the Te Aro Pā. So this is voyage, hadn't finished yet. We've achieved a major milestone, but we've got some way to go yet. Thank you for that, ka mutu. Ngā mihi nui.
Tēnā koe, Richard, and as has been the custom with all our speakers, the conference has a little gift to you to say thank you. And just a different perspective, I guess, for those people in the room in terms of the involvement of Te Tumu Paeroa alongside of the owners. So thank you very much for coming.
Sure.
And all the best with other initiatives there. Okie dokie. So you wouldn't need to be an Einstein to figure out that kua tai tō muri mai taku whanaunga. The minister has been delayed. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. O tēnā, I've got a couple of important messages. Now, if Jenny Sams, if you're in the room or anyone knows where Jenny is, can you, Kieran is wanting to see you out at the admin table. It sounded quite, not urgent, but yes, please, yeah, semi-urgent. Okay, now I've got a wee bit of a pānui here, mā koutou, kei te haere atu ki te marae, tātou tērā ne. Okay, for parking, now this is assuming you actually know how to get to the marae this afternoon. Please don't follow me. For parking, come right down the hill to the cul-de-sac, and there you will be met by someone. It's every girl's dream. It's been a long day. Come through the gates by the water. This is the story of Hinemoa and Tūtānekai. Come through the gates by the water past the Koangareo playground, meeting in front of the Warekai. Doors will be open at the time stipulated on your program. And just a reminder that it can get boggy if it has been raining in the car park. Kaumātua can be dropped off by the roro of the ware, but there's to be no parking there, please. And there is restricted entry at the back of the Warekai for those of you trying to sneak in and go to the Warepaku. Just be mindful that the family have been working hard down there to get our hakari ready for this evening. And also we've got our rohe / iwi / hapu skits on later on tonight, or your item, you know, don't be shy, put your best foot forward. Laurie was talking about Matatini and getting their homes built by Matatini before we all head over to the bay next year. Just for those of you who don't really need to know, I need to practice tonight at the cultural event because I got the call up to Matatini, and I'm looking very forward to being a part of the MC crew at Te Matatini next year. Not quite sure how I make it to the finals day, because no, my luck, I'll probably be on day 2, like at first thing in the morning when nobody comes because all the Māori get up real late, unless, you know, top 6 are on in the morning. But looking forward to going over the bay there to eat oranges and apples for the week with our whānau there at Matatini next year. Oti noa, if I could encourage us to stand up and take a bit of a stretch. I'm sure the minister's coming in with something absolutely scintillating to say to us this afternoon, and he better be given that he's 28 minutes late. So stand up, stretch the shoulders. See, I could have let you fellas have a longer cup of tea. I'm sorry. You could have learnt a lot more about hemp. I can't tell you anything because I'm not even sure if I've got the right product. I'm a good girl. That doesn't mean anything. Look, we're not taking a break, don't run away, but if you do need to pop off to the toilet, you pop off, and when we all come back, I'll make the minister wait for you.